of the 2015 Rockville elections. We're live here at the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater. Please welcome our moderator from the League of Women Voters, Lena Barnes.
Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters, Montgomery County's Rockville City Council and mayoral candidates debates. I am Lena Barnes, president of the Montgomery County League, and I will be the moderator tonight. Sponsoring candidates forums is just one of the ways in which the League of Women Voters works to create an informed electorate. League members also register voters throughout the year and publish the voters' guides before the primary and general elections for the county, state, and national elections. I want to begin tonight by thanking the City of Rockville for providing this opportunity for Rockville citizens to see this debate, which is being broadcast live on the Rockville Municipal TV station, Rock 11. I also want to thank the League members who are helping with the debate and Vicki Strella of our League, who has organized this endeavor. And finally, I thank the Board of Elections of Montgomery County for providing a demonstration of the new voting equipment that will be premiered in this county at the November 3rd election for the City of Rockville. In the audience are residents of Rockville and other parts of the county. I especially want to acknowledge those of you who are working with the League's Civic Engagement Roundtable. And of course, I thank the candidates who are participating tonight in order to give the citizens of Rockville the information they need to make decisions on Election Day, which is November 3rd. Tonight, we plan on having a lively exchange of views with the 9 candidates. We will begin with opening statements from the 9 who are seated in an order that was determined by a random drawing before the debate began. We will then proceed to ask questions from a list that was drawn by the League members and from questions that have been provided by members of the audience. Audience members who wish to ask a question, please write it on a card you received when you arrived and pass it towards the aisle right now, and it will be collected. As you pass those cards to your right or left, if you're on an aisle the other way, let me continue. At the end of the questions, each candidate will have an opportunity to give a closing statement. Following the County Council debates, there will be a 10-minute break during which we will switch from the City Council portion of the debate, City Council members portion of the debate, to a debate between the 2 mayoral candidates. I would like to ask audience members to take this opportunity to applaud their candidates. This will be your only time to applause, as we would like you to remain silent during the debate. So please take this opportunity. You will also be able to show your support again at the end of the council debates. I also ask again that you be sure that you turn off your cell phones. We're now going to begin the debate with our opening statements. So we will start at my right, challenged with directions in that way, with Patrick Schoaf. Please begin.
Thank you, League of Women's Voters, for hosting tonight, and congratulations on your 95 years. My name is Patrick Schoaf. I'm a proud resident, parent, and leading advocate for Rockville neighbors, with 20-plus years of real-world executive leadership experience with hundreds of businesses and nonprofits and 6 city governments. This experience has helped me bring people together, develop reliable solutions, and ensure the right things get done every time, as promised. I have degrees in public administration, law, and management, yet I'm hired due to my ability to solve complex challenges in diverse environments and my focus on serving the needs of people first and foremost. My priorities include managing our growth with less dense development, returning our APFS standards to protect our neighborhoods, and reducing traffic congestion while improving the street safety and pedestrian. It'd be a pleasure to serve you on the City Council.
Thank you. Now we'll have Richard Gottfried give his opening.
Good evening. I am Richard Gottfried, your neighborhood candidate. I want to thank you for coming out tonight and attending the 5th Council debate, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. I am a small business owner. I am a certified public accountant, so I understand accountability. I've been elected twice as the Twin Brook Citizens Association president, so I understand how to listen to the residents of Twin Brook and how to represent your interests. Anyone can run for Rockville City Council. All you need is 100 signatures, be a resident of Rockville City, and be over 18 years old. Being a council person is not about their experience or what boards or commissions they were on, or if they were on the council previously. What is important in choosing your next council person is one that listens to the residents and represents the people of Rockville. Now let me tell you what I stand for. Right-sized growth. Protect our neighborhoods and families that live in those neighborhoods. And I will bring common sense leadership back to government.
Thank you, Mr. Gottfried. Next is David Hill.
Good evening. I'm David Hill, candidate for City Council. My running for council is about service, not an agenda of issues. I've been an appointed commissioner on major and legally responsible city bodies for 20 years. I was appointed multiple times to the Planning Commission and Board of Appeals, serving on each for 10 years, and have been elected chair of these bodies 5 times. Also, I was appointed co-chair of the 2002 Charter Review Commission and to the last Zoning Review Committee that rewrote that ordinance starting in 2006. I was elected president of the Hungerford Civic Association for 5 years and served as a director of Peerless Rockville, and further service in the government and community that you can read about on my website. After all this, I'm stepping up to run for elective office to continue serving in the city in a new way. Since 1999, many officials and citizens have asked me to do that, and now I feel I have the time necessary to serve strongly as a council member. No one here has the knowledge and experience I have on land use and its applications. That's critical to the council for handling development and zoning administration to produce a better city. These are among the most significant powers alongside tax authority and policing.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Virginia Onley.
Good evening. I'm Councilmember Virginia Onley, and I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd to re-elect me to the Rockville City Council. During my first term on the council, I ensured that our adequate public facility ordinance would allow us to maintain and renew our city so that young families with children, teachers, firefighters, police officers, and senior citizens could afford to live in our city. We cannot be afraid of growth, and I support smart, practical growth in the years to come. It's important to me, and I stand committed to working with neighborhood residents, our planning commission, city staff, and potential developers, and not letting development harm the character or community life that represents Rockville. I've lived in Rockville 22 years at Americana Center and served on 9 boards and commissions. I'm retired from IBM, where I worked for 35 years, and I'm a member of St. Mary's Parish Council. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Feinberg.
I am Beryl Feinberg, City Council member and independent candidate running for re-election. Thank you to the League for sponsoring this forum. 2 years ago, I acquainted residents with my long-standing credentials as a proven, results-based and pragmatic leader in local government. Tonight, I can share that I kept my 2013 campaign pledges to preserve our neighborhoods, be a good steward of our fiscal resources, foster an environment that manages growth, and help residents remain in their homes. Among my priorities for the next session is increased transparency and management oversight for procurement and budget where your tax dollars are spent. I will continue to work tirelessly so that during the 2015 to 19 term, Rockville continues its enviable ranking on the best 100 places to live list. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mr. Pershala.
Thank you. My name is Mark Pershala. I was a Rockville Council member from 2009 to 13, and I am asking you to return me to office. From 2009 to 13, I was the one who got things done. I funded the senior center fitness facility. I funded the new police station. I funded the Goody Drive maintenance facility that keeps your snow plows running. I brought Choice Hotels International to Rockville, providing over 400 high-quality jobs and a hotel in our town center, plus increased property taxes. I wrote the resolution that moved Redgate Golf Course to private management, saving $630,000 per year in taxpayer subsidy. I insisted that our new ethics ordinance be a strong one. Rockville is a bustling city, but it has challenges. Our town center is struggling. Some of our neighborhood centers are deteriorating. We need a vigorous commercial tax base to support our programs, new school construction, and to keep residential property tax rates low. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, you're next.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum. I'm Clark Reed, a new candidate for City Council. A young boy named Matty Stepanek once said, "Unity is strength. When there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved." There's no doubt that all the candidates up here have achieved wonderful things. Let me tell you about some of mine. Have you heard of the Rockville Solar Co-op? I launched it in May as chair of the Rockville Environment Commission because people want energy independence and clean power from the sun. Over 250 people and families have joined, and they are now installing rooftop solar systems at a major discount. I also helped rally other cities to testify in Annapolis in support of solar legislation. Next year, anyone in the city could have the ability to purchase solar panels at a community site, and your electric bill will get credited just as if these panels were on your roof. Both of these accomplishments wouldn't have happened without teamwork and my leadership. Maddie said it best, in unity there is strength. Thank you.
Next we'll have Brigida Mulligan.
My name is Brigida Mulligan, and I'm running for Rockville City Council. In my 50 years in Rockville, I went to school, became a United States citizen, and raised a daughter. Rockville has afforded me opportunities that I could not have found anyplace else. This is what makes this city special. But keeping this city special takes devoted citizens to be active and engaged in city government and civic groups. That is why I have been involved and active with boards, commissions, and civic organizations. Through my community activism, I have developed a strong sense of how this city works and what needs to be done. As councilperson, I will be the voice of Rockville's average citizen fighting to keep Rockville a safe and affordable place to live. I will keep a close eye on the budget to see that our property tax remains reasonable. I will request the council to approve a complete organizational review to see why we have a $120 million budget. I am not a politician. I am just a dedicated neighbor looking to fight for a better Rockville and more efficiency. I hope that you will hear more from me tonight and be convinced to vote.
Thank you. And finally, we'll have Julie Polakovich Carr will give her statement.
Good evening. I'm Julie Polakovich Carr, and I'm seeking re-election to the City Council. My service on the Council has been guided by a vision of Rockville as a great place for people at all stages of life. I've worked to keep our neighborhoods vibrant and safe. I've sought new ways to protect our environment. I pushed for our streets to be safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. I prioritized needed investments in infrastructure. And residents will continue to receive excellent city services without an increase in their tax rate. During the next term, the city needs to continue to work with the county and state to address the backlog of school construction projects in Rockville. We need to finish a new plan for Rockville Pike to revitalize blighted properties and deal with increasing traffic congestion. I also want to enable residents to easily compost food waste. In addition to my 2 years on the council, I chaired a task force on development policy, was vice chair of the City Services and Budget Working Group, and served 2 terms on the city's Environment Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you giving your opening statements. So next we're going to ask our first question, and we're going to ask that in the reverse order as the candidates are seated at the table as when they gave their opening statements. So we will just go down the table again. So the question I'm going to ask is, school overcrowding and aging schools are of concern to many parents in the city. How can the city help address these problems? And when you're giving your answer, many people that know issues in Rockville know about the adequate public facility question and how the vote went on that. Talk about that, but also talk about what Rockville specifically can do to help with the school situation and how you would solve that problem. So let's start with Ms. Polakovich Carr.
So I think as most people know, the city doesn't control public schools in this area. That's a responsibility of Montgomery County. So the city's role largely is in terms of an advocate for our students and our families who attend MCPS schools. During my time on the council, actually our top legislative priority with the state has been trying to increase funding for new school construction and also trying to work with the county to revitalize our aging schools, schools like Twin Brook that are in desperate need of upgrades so that they are actually accessible for kids with disabilities. I think that we need to continue to work on those issues going forward, but what we've done to date is a good starting place, but there's more that we can do. We can work better with other municipalities and other PTAs outside of Rockville in order to accomplish that goal of getting more funding that's so very much needed.
Thank you. Ms. Mulligan.
I believe that the adequate public facility ordinance that has been given so much stress is not really the key. It has been a failed policy in the city for 10 years. What I think the city can do is do a better job advocating for the needs that we have in the school and work with the county, the Montgomery County Public School System, and advocate getting more construction money for schools. One of the issues that I would like to look into is what happens to all that impact tax the developer has been paying for the development that have already and will be bringing in. The money is not coming back to the schools. My concern is that we're going to lose out, and there is no control of a boundary size, classroom size. So my thing is just to advocate with the other organizations because Rockville does not control the schools.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Reed.
I care about our schools passionately. I have a 9-year-old son who is in Trumbuck Elementary School, and my wife Colleen just wrapped up a year serving as president of Twinbrook. This issue of overcrowding has been something that our city has been dealing with for many years now. And we seem to have finally come to a conclusion that we do not control the use of school construction funding. It's the county. And what we need to do, what I advocate, is that we need to lead an effort countywide to reprioritize how construction funding is done in the county. And it's through that coming together, not just in Rockville, but all of the cities in Rockville, that we can begin to address this issue with the county.
Thank you. I will remind candidates this is a minute answer. I don't think I stated that first, but it will be a minute. So let's move on to Mr. Pershala.
Yes, when I was on the council, I and my elected colleagues did successfully advocate, for example, for a new school number 5 in the Richard Montgomery cluster and for expansion at Julius West Middle School. But I think at the countywide level, we're competing with each other. Each cluster is competing with each other. And when I say advocacy going forward, I mean a political movement where it becomes important for Board of Education candidates and county council candidates to really address this issue when they're running for office. But we have to keep a balance. We cannot stop all residential development because of school capacity issues. King Farm would not be here. That 6,000 people in their homes would not be here had the APFO been in effect 10 years earlier than it was. I think it's a wonderful addition to the city, and so what I want is that balance, and so I think it is absolutely a question of using our offices to connect with other leaders across the county to make this a political movement, even fielding candidates who make it their big issue.
Mrs. Feinberg.
Thank you. As I've been walking neighborhoods in Rockville, very often what I hear is, I really care about my child's school. I don't care about the cluster. Cluster averaging simply is not going to work. What do we need to do on the city council? We need to testify and advocate to the county and with MCPS to prioritize MCPS funding for Rockville feeder schools. We need to continue to lobby state delegates when funding issues come up. We need to put information on Civic Association listservs, RE school calendaring, and the dates. We need to advocate for the geographic cost of education funding for FY17. We have to show how the county already prioritizes education funding. And we need to look at school capacity in a new way. We need to understand it's not just about new development, but generational turnover. We need creative, innovative thinking. What we don't need is weakening the city's APFS.
Thank you. Mrs. Onley.
I think the first step was to align with the county because it's hard to compete when you have a different standard. So that was the first step. The next step is to make sure that we work with the county and make sure that we go to Annapolis with MCPS when they are rallying for us to get more money. But first, we really have to connect with the county to make sure that we advocate for our children here in Rockville. I think that is the only way that we're going to be able to get the school construction money that's greatly needed by the city of Rockville. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Hill.
I concur with some other statements up here that what we really need to do is advocate better with Montgomery County Public Schools, the state and the county. This is largely a funding question, and we need to advocate for the city to get its fair share of that funding. We have the reserve sites to build our way out of this. That's not the problem. It really is that question of resources. The most direct solution regarding development is to actually charge a school impact excise fee, but we can't do that legally in the state, and I'm not actually ready to give up yet that we can actually get that state law changed. It's the way to generate direct funding here for the schools we need here, but that's the key. We shouldn't be burdening our businesses with fees that would be spent in other places. So that's the reason that has had a little troubles getting off the ground. There are some other solutions I'd like to look from the zoning experience I have. I'd like to consider enterprise zones. We could look at the waiver structure a little bit better, and it's also possible we might marketize the development capacity in the city and use the market mechanism to better handle the relationship between generating students and school capacity.
Thank you. Mr. Gottfried.
My plan is we must protect our children. No child should attend a school at 120% of its capacity. My very first motion, if elected, will be to overturn this tragic vote this year that has further overcrowded our schools. Team Rockville states that they want to go to Annapolis now as an election campaign promise. Where were they 2 years ago? Where were they 4 years ago? Where were they 6 years ago, before they decided to overcrowd the schools? We're putting the cart before the horse. Team Rockville has failed. Noah built the ark before the flood came. We should build the schools before the kids come. Or we should also open up our closed schools as an alternative. And we should build the roads before the traffic comes.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Schoaf.
Jumping off of what Richard just said, I've been to the county twice. I've been to Annapolis. I've spoken with the people there. I've worked with PTAs and MCC PTA. I've worked with national and international education organizations who are actually paying attention to this issue and are also concerned. This is the only tool we had, the APFS. It was a decent tool. It wasn't the only tool. There are lots of things that we need to do. In the first few months alone since the overturn, we've moved from 64 to 191 additional students that are supposed to be expected as new just from those projects alone. And this is actually city staff report. Going to the county, the team actually referred to this as going to be a bloody battle. This goes back to another issue about how do we work with the county. We don't need to have bloody battle issues. What we need to do is we need to work collectively together. We in Rockville are independent. We need to set the standard, and then we need to go to the county and get them to change theirs, not the other way around.
Thank you. So now we're going to proceed. I'm going to ask a question from the audience, which also relates to Montgomery County Public Schools. And let's see, what we're going to do this time is actually go in alphabetical order. So I will call out very clearly your name, but you probably sat in alphabetical order, so I'm certain that you can follow this. And we'll start with Julie Polakovich-Carr, and then Beryl Feinberg, and then we'll go down. You won't be in the order you are, but your alphabetical order. So I'll call on your name, so just be listening for it. So this is a question. As a 36-year resident of Manakee Street, I would be interested in your plans for the Rock Terrace School, Carver, and the surrounding fields. Carver is the Board of Education building. It's a very large tract of land with the Rock Terrace School there. How can the mayor and council influence the county's plans for this area? So let's start with you, Ms. Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you. Though I will point out that my last name does start with P, but I'm still happy to go first. Polakovich-Carr is the full thing, but that's okay.
It wasn't hyphenated, so.
Correct.
Okay.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No worries. So actually, the county does have some plans for the moment for the Rock Terrace School. That is one of the sites that they will be closing and considering using in the future for an alternative education program. But there are other sites across the county that are being considered as the home of that new alternative education program. There are no definitive plans yet at the moment for Rock Terrace School. I've not heard any plans in terms of the Board of Education moving out of the Carver building. So in many ways, the city's role in this is for the time being, monitoring what's happening in terms of those sites, currently staying informed, and as the county and MCPS and the Board of Education come forward with new plans, to be interacting with those entities and to make sure that the new plans will work well in terms of Rockville, that the traffic patterns make sense, but because those are governmental entities, we are somewhat limited in our oversight because of an issue called mandatory referral.
Thank you. Mrs. Feinberg, you're next.
Thank you very much. In terms of what we can do, I think very similarly to before, we can engage in advocacy. We can also attend all of the MCPS hearings. There are many that are done both in MCPS as well as on the county government side. We also can look at the program of requirements, look at what's in the queue over the 6-year period in the Montgomery County Schools CIP program, and we can see what programs will be where. We do not have control over the specialty programs that MCPS puts in terms of special education, linkages to learning, or alternative programs. That is not within our purview. That is a decision of MCPS. We can certainly advocate, but we do not have the control. And I believe that we should also be able to look and work collaboratively with them as to what would be the best fit moving forward for that property.
Thank you. Next is Richard Gottfried. Mr. Gottfried?
Yes. We have not properly communicated with the county. If you look at the sustainable growth policy that's now currently happening with Montgomery County, it's only projected that we're going to have 1,700 new units from 2010 to 2030. So basically, one new complex is going to mess up MC projections. The 2014 sustainable growth policy, City of Rockville has not communicated to Montgomery County what their growth plan is. Rockville does not live in a bubble. We need to work with Montgomery County now. We should have been working with them back in 2012. Montgomery County cannot plan new schools for Rockville nor roads. We do not do proper planning with what our growth is going to be.
Thank you. We'll next go to David Hill. Mr. Hill?
I think the start of advocacy is actually having your own vision on what you're advocating for, and I think the city should start talking about what happens to these sites. In the last forum that we just had, I proposed that the critical parcel sections of this comprehensive master plan should be accelerated as a stopgap measure, because a comprehensive master plan is going to take a while to produce, and these critical sites really need some attention and action, and we should get going now on them. And I would include the Rock Terrace site in that regard. I'll break the news, if you don't know already, that the front of the Carver site is actually already in Montgomery College's long-range planning. And I suspect that's probably the future, at least for the front of that site. That's part of, it's not part of the city, it's an overlapping jurisdiction. We're constrained by what we can influence through our mandatory referral process that's already in the city.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to Brigida Mulligan. Ms. Mulligan?
Yes, a lot has been said about advocating with the Montgomery County school system. I would like to say that one of the things that I think is very important is that the neighborhood is advised of what the city can and cannot do. This is a county issue, and letting neighbors think that they can just stop something is wrong. I think that has happened too many times in Rockville. What I think is important is to let the neighbors know what the zoning requirements are and what the county is allowed to do. Now, what we can do is have meetings where the people's concerns are addressed, like the traffic, and the county is going to be required to follow all these. So there's really not a whole lot the city can do except advise the neighbors exactly what the county will do and can do.
Thank you. The next candidate we'll be hearing from is Virginia Onley. Ms. Onley?
We can't control what Montgomery County does, but I believe as an elected official, if you advocate for what's best for Rockville, then we will be ahead of the game. I think that we need a bigger push on what happens to these schools. We don't control special programs, but we have children who are in the special programs, and our children attend these schools. So it's going to be really important to roll up our sleeves and make sure that we're at the table with Montgomery County, and that Montgomery County understands that we are going to fight for our children, we're going to fight for funds, and we want what's best for our children here in Rockville. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate we'll hear from is Mark Pershela.
Thank you. The city can certainly form a working group with Montgomery College, Montgomery County Public Schools, and the city itself, but also including the neighborhoods that surround College Gardens, Woodley Gardens West, College Square, and Lincoln Park. There's precedent for this. Montgomery College has worked with those neighborhoods before when I was the Civic Association president. We also have to make sure they take into account the historic aspects of Carver that was very important to the city. But certainly, we can have an influence if we, as a city, ask for this working group to be formed, where not only city staff and elected are involved, but the surrounding neighborhoods are involved. And that was actually a very productive and fruitful collaboration that the neighborhoods have had before with these entities right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Clark Reed. Mr. Reed?
Great, thank you. Well, there are studies out that say that the educational differences between various schools, about 1/3 of the variation is actually in the quality of schools itself, but 2/3 of the variation of these schools are explained by non-school factors, things like neighborhood quality and safety and transportation and parent engagement and after-school programs and these sorts of things that the city actually does influence. So, I believe that the city could do what I think it does very well, which is to bring people together to the table, the neighborhoods, for instance, that Mark just mentioned, and talk to the Board of Education and the neighbors about what does the school need, what does the neighbors need, and then if any of these other non-school factors like after-school programs and parent engagement and these sorts of things, that's what we might be able to do.
Thank you very much. So our last candidate is Patrick Schoaf.
First, there is a lot that the city can do. We simply haven't done it. We can develop a healthy relationship. This is where we need to start with the county. And it has to be based on trust and honest partnership. We don't have that right now. That's part of the reason that we've had battles. And it's not because of all members of the council. Some people have a good working relationship. Yes, we can certainly look at critical sites, but critical sites is necessary because we've been reactive. If we'd been engaged in some of these issues a long time ago, with zoning and with other decisions that we made that were healthy and working with the county, we wouldn't have to be dealing with some of these issues the way that we are now. We need to move to a much more proactive stance. We need to do our research, and we can't just look at local committees to do our research. We have to look at state and national actors. And a lot of the information that we get and a lot of the statistics that we use, unfortunately, are not statistics that are being used correctly.
Thank you. So now we'll move to another question. This time we're going to go in order of the table as the opening statements were, so we'll start with Mr. Schoaf. But so let me give you the question. What specific things should Rockville do to increase affordable and workforce housing in the city? And do you think this should become a high priority for the city? And in addition to that, do you think the city should find some way to put money into this effort so that they either to build units, to make bonding, other things like that? So we will start with you, Mr. Schoaf. Sure. Schoaf.
Affordable housing. We want to be able to afford our homes. We've had a lot of things that have affected us in the last few years, in the last decade. One of them is an economic upturn that put a lot of people underwater in their homes. That still exists throughout the county, throughout the country. Rockville's been lucky because we've actually done better than some cities, but a lot of people are still under. We need to make sure that affordable housing is not just for people who are poor, who are teachers, who are firefighters, who are police officers who want to live here, because I've spoken with many of them who can't afford it. We need to make sure that people who are homeowners, that have been existing homeowners, can still afford their homes, to make sure that seniors can still afford their homes, to provide services and programs to make it easier for them to live here. Affordable housing is a big issue. We also need to make sure that we're taking a look long-term at things like infrastructure so that we can do this not just in the short run, but in the long term and make good decisions. And we need to be turning around our infrastructure a lot faster than 1%, which is what we're doing now.
Thank you. Mr. Gottfried is next.
We have a diverse makeup of affordable housing with condos and townhouses and apartments and single-family homes. My plan to have seniors be able to age in place and be an affordable place to live. I've come up with some suggestions at the senior debate. Number one was to limit the increase in assessments for seniors over the age of 65 to 1 to 2%. Regarding the budget, to reallocate our rec and park budget, departmental budget, which now allocates 8% to seniors, and to match that with our current senior population of 14%, so that we can afford it. Number three, the state of Maryland has a grant program, so seniors can get today up to $25,000 free money to add handrails and widen their bathroom doors so they can afford to live in their house if they qualify. If they don't qualify,
thank you.
Then get a loan.
Mr. Hill, you're next.
Yes, I think the problem of affordable housing is largely one of market force, and it's a function of our success. People want to come here, and that demand has been driving up our land and property values for quite a while. The fact is that some people are getting left behind that we think are important parts of our community, which is our motivation, I believe, to have the concern about affordable housing. You know, Rockville has the moderate price dwelling unit program, which is fairly active in any development that is over a fairly modest number of units, that some of those have to be set aside for affordable housing activity. It also has Rockville Housing Enterprise. I think we need to continue to support those programs very heavily. That's what we're doing already. Also at the federal level, you can have FHA qualification to get more favorable loans. But the biggest issue for me here is workforce housing. That's my biggest concern, where we have important members of our community that are doing jobs that are somewhat structurally limited in salary, that can't afford to live in their own community. And that's a little bit of a trickier problem. They make too much to qualify for some of the low-cost programs and not enough to really be able to afford it. And I think that's the one that we really need to focus on.
Thank you. Next is Mrs. Onley.
Well, lifting the moratorium was the first step in providing, affordable housing, workforce housing, because we have police officers, teachers who can't afford to live in this city, and we really need to put an effort on getting that 12 to 15% of the housing for that population. The other part of this question was, should the city put money? I think if we get the right amount of economic growth, that is something that we could consider, but I don't have an answer for us putting money in at this time. I think that once we get the units built or the houses built and we put the right number of workforce houses in, that will help our city greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's Mrs. Feinberg.
Thank you very much. I think affordable housing and workforce housing are critical, but it's not just critical for young people moving into the city. It's also maybe those who are new to our country, as we have all noticed the diversity and the number of folks coming from outside of the country and moving to the state of Maryland. And what can we do? Perhaps we can have in Rockville a first-time home buyer tax credit, similar to that which is done in the District of Columbia. This would inspire folks to move to Rockville. Additionally, as Mr. Hill has said, we do have a wonderful MPDU program, but perhaps we need to relook at it to see when somebody graduates from that program, or we need to look at revamping the entire program. Secondly, we do need more senior housing so that when people downsize, they could either buy or rent, but it is still affordable housing. Lastly, I think we need to look at zoning to make it more flexible for what is occupancy in a home. It's not just mom and dad anymore.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pershela.
Thank you. This is an excellent example of trying to achieve a balance. The Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance was getting in the way of a lot of residential construction around the city. And so when you have not keeping up the demand with the demand of housing, not keeping up with that, you get these price increases, and this is a problem throughout the metropolitan area. There are streets in Rockville, of single-family home streets, where you can't park, or it's very difficult to park because there are so many adults living on that street. This is one of those unintended consequences of not having enough housing. So I would certainly, in certain areas of the city, especially transit centers, allow more housing so that the prices are naturally kept at a reasonable level. I think the MPDU program is wonderful. We just looked at it recently, but it doesn't really work if you can't build any housing at all. So you have to keep that in mind, that we really need to achieve a balance. If we do that, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reed.
Well, we moved to Twinbrook because its small homes are affordable and it's near the metro. It allows us to have one car. So, you know, affordable housing is very important at a personal level. We do know there is a severe shortage of affordable housing in Rockville, and we need to allow workforce to be able to live more affordably here. And I think the way that we do that is we support the Rockville housing enterprises and other city programs to assist residents. I also think that that developing on the Pike with taller heights around the metro areas are going to allow a greater density of affordable housing than if they were much shorter heights.
Thank you. Ms. Mulligan.
Well, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what others have said, but I also agree with the moderately priced unit requirement the city has, which is 15%. All developments are required to provide that much moderately priced units, but that's not the only thing that we need for affordable housing. I would propose that we increase the Rockville Enterprise program, where that the city would buy some of these homes. There are a lot of homes in Rockville that are not that expensive, and what I would expect is to compensate the money by renting them out. In other words, the city could purchase these homes, put them in good condition, rent them out, and there's no extra cost. So it's a matter of investing and then bringing the money in for those people who can't afford them.
Thank you. Ms. Polakovich-Carr.
Well, maintaining an affordable community is certainly an issue in Rockville and throughout the Washington, D.C. metro area. We are seeing rents go up throughout the region, and this isn't just an issue for people who are recent college graduates and trying to start out their households. It's also an issue for seniors who are on fixed incomes. As several other people have alluded to, the city does have a requirement in terms of new development projects that would build at least 50 housing units to set aside a certain percentage of those housing units for people of moderate incomes. Think about teachers, firefighters, police officers. And that program has really been a big success. We've built about 1,000 units for households of moderate income over the last decade. And what's great about this program is these aren't an enclave of people of lower means. These are integrated throughout the building. So you have people who are paying market rate for apartments and people who are paying a lower rate. And this term, I was very proud to actually author the requirement that in the future, all MPDU units will have to be built on site. They cannot be built elsewhere.
Thank you. So now we're going to come to a question. We're going to ask a question of 4 of the candidates, and then we'll have the remaining 5 candidates speak to it. And I hope the 5 candidates, in the second round of this, will respond to what the previous candidates have said. But if you don't, you don't. You still have your time. After we finish this round, we will move to where the 5 candidates get to have are asked a question, and then the 4 candidates respond to that. So in this round, we're going to have 45-second answers and 45-second responses. And we're going to start in the reverse order in which you're seated. So the first 4 candidates will start with Ms. Polakovich-Carr. So let me start with the first question. The county has a vision for Rockville Pike. We've obviously seen that with what's happening at White Flint. What should the cities of Rockville's vision be? What's your vision for the Pike? And I hope you will, in answering this, you'll address heights and density and what's really happening along the stretch of it. So, Ms. Polakovich-Carr.
So the city's in year 8 of a planning process for our southern stretch of Rockville Pike, south of Town Center down to our southern city limits at Twinbrook Metro Station. I think it's time that we need a new Pike plan. We are operating under a very outdated plan from 1989, and we really need to be embracing more public transportation. The county has a plan for bus rapid transit, which would certainly help with regional congestion in Rockville. I think we also need to do better in terms of planning for pedestrians and bicyclists. And the draft Pike plan that came before the mayor and council this term certainly would go a long way in that regard. In terms of building heights, don't have quite enough time to get too in depth on that, but I will just say I think it makes sense to put people near metro stations where they have access to public transportation.
Thank you. Next, it's Brigida Mulligan.
Well, I believe in mixed-use development. I think there's a lot of things that can be done on the Pike. There are already some plans that were proposed by the BF Saul project where they're asking to get extra space to build to the build line, and they've even offered to pay for the right-of-way of the part of the road, to build the road and maintain the road so that we as taxpayers don't have to pay for that. And for that, they would want a little bit of extra height, and this is around the Trimberg Metro Station, and I think that's very good because they're able to give us more green space and some water features, and so mixed use with a little bit of height near the transit station is appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Reed.
Well, the Pike Corridor is incredibly important to the city's economic health and throughout the region. The Pike Plan allows the heights of buildings around 6 to 7 stories, and then at much higher heights at the metro areas. That's smart growth, and I support that. We need to have people who come into the city. They're going to be living in these areas, and they're millennials. They're people that don't need or don't drive as much as we all used to, and so any types of alternative transportation like bikes and best rapid transit are things that we need to encourage.
Thank you. Mr. Pershela.
Thank you. I fully support the bus rapid transit on Highway 355. I think it's probably the only place in the county where it would really work. I would go for 10 to 12 stories near the transit centers, meaning Metro, and lower elsewhere. Bike paths are great. I'm not so hot on the access roads. I would underground the wires, and I would certainly make sure that there'd be adequate park space taken into account in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So now it's going to be, you get to respond. I hope you'll respond to the candidates, their previous statements, but that said, I'd like to hear your views on this. So we'll start with Ms. Feinberg.
Thank you very much. I agree with many of the things that my colleagues up here have said. I do believe the bus rapid transit should be through the part in the city of Rockville. I also want to look at some other things they haven't talked about. Rockville Pike will require a higher level of amenity services, more lighting, perhaps more distinctive lighting, more promotional activities, amenities, higher level of a police presence, simply because it's going to be a denser population and more people hopefully frequenting it. So I would like to see the creation of a business development district within the Rockville Pike area to support some of these, that the businesses and residents would pay for some of the higher level of service.
Thank you. Ms. Onley.
Well, I'd like to see the bus rapid transit. I'd also like to see our city have a trolley, because I live near Metro, and I'd like to see heights increased near the Metro. I live at Americana Center. We have a 13 and a 14-story high-rise on the property where I live, and it is so convenient when you have that kind of density near the Metro stops. I think my vision for the Pike would be shops, restaurants, and family gathering places where you could take your family and really enjoy the restaurants and what's available on the Pike.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes, I've actually been at the table for the Pike plan, and I think it's the best plan we can produce, but you've been Ben Franklin's words to say that I don't like everything in it, but it was a collective effort, and I respect that collective effort, so I'm willing to support it fully. I was at the table when we wrote the MXCD zone, the mixed-use corridor zone, which is used up and down the Pike. I'd like to address a criticism, though. A couple of people have said that this plan has taken way too long, and let me tell you the troubles we faced. First of all, the consultants gave us a plan we couldn't build up by our own zoning ordinance. It was also too generic, and we had to turn around and make it very local. The county BRT came along. We were confused about what to do with that and gave the county its favored configuration, then were criticized for that. State law changed in 2012. Then we tried to give the mayor and council a really good time to have good hearings about that and stretch the planning commission discretion, and then state law changed again recently.
Thank you. Mr. Gottfried.
Yes, I've heard Team Rockville say that we need more property taxes. It's going to increase our property taxes. Well, growth does not pay for growth. If it did, we would not have 120% of overcrowding in our schools. We need to put the roads and schools in place to support the planned development. The plan does not require developers to have green space. That's why if you go visit Pike and Rose, they have a green tree painted on the side of the building. I've knocked on over 5,000 doors, and there isn't one resident that says, you know something, you know what we're missing on Rockville Pike? 11 15-story buildings.
Thank you. Mr. Schoff. Mr. Schoaf, I'm sorry.
We need to start by thinking first and creating an idea of what it is we want, an identity of who we are and where we're going. When we don't do that, developers plan for us, and that's become a problem. The initial Pike plan was based on a Barcelona European model that didn't make any sense for us. We have too many elements of current plans based on a Virginia model for growth and success. The problem is we don't have that dynamic. We don't have that priorities. We care about our neighborhoods too much. We have issues about not receiving any sales tax. If we don't get any sales tax, that model won't work here as well. Smart growth is not a good, smart youth in formal definition is not a good model for us. We need to be less dense, have more reasonable heights, and not be towering with 12-story buildings in every direction.
Thank you. So now we're going to move to the next round where you respond to what the other candidates have said, and we'll start with the center of the table, starting with Mrs. Feinberg, and then we'll move down, and then we'll come back and start with Mr. Pershala and then we'll end with Ms. Polakovich-Carr. So let me ask this question. So we've heard something about what people think about bus rapid transit. Some people talked about that on the Pike. But there are also other traffic issues in Montgomery County and in the city of Rockville. What do you think the city can do about traffic congestion on the Twin Brook Parkway and Chapman Avenue, that area, and also throw in just all sorts of any other traffic issues you might want to? So we'll start with you, Mrs. Feinberg.
Thank you very much. Yes, we all know that traffic congestion is probably the bane of our existence as we navigate through and across the city. There are many things we can do. Part of it deals with the design of our streets and the education and the engineering of them when we design our roads. We need to make sure that the pedestrians are safe and that they have the ability to navigate across the streets. We've seen the different kinds of engineering design. I would also like to see that the signals that are through the city, which are controlled by the county, that we work with them to see if we need to modify them during the days of the week and the times of the day.
Thank you. Mrs. Onley.
I think the key to controlling traffic is to have mass transit. You know, the bus rapid transit will help us a great deal, but in Rockville, we could have our own trolley circulator like the one in Annapolis, and I think that will help relieve some congestion. I live near the metro, and it's great to just run across the street and jump on the metro, but not everybody lives near the metro. But if we had a circulator that actually picked up from different neighborhoods, I think that would help us greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
I'd actually like to link this to the last answer because I think the boulevard concept for the Pike Plan, which is a little bit misunderstood, is directly about efficiency and safety and how we can get the most traffic moving in the safest manner possible. I don't have time to explain that in great detail here, but I encourage you to pursue that and follow up on it. The longest term solution we have for traffic is to reduce car use, and that is actually the foundation behind the Complete the Streets program, where we're encouraging pedestrian use, bicycle use, and alternate ways to get around, more transit use. I would also, though, encourage people to not hang their hooks on BRT as going to solve the problems of traffic in Rockville. The bus rapid transit system is about long-distance travel. I think we will only have 3 to 4 stations along the Pike in Rockville, and a couple of those have to line up with the metro stations. So it's not going to be any easier to get on than metro.
Thank you. Mr. Gottfried.
Yes, regarding Halpine Road, which is in my neighborhood in Twin Brook, I heard a lot of the residents who are trying to get out from Halpine to Ardennes to Twin Brook Parkway to Rockville Pike. There's 4 lights, and it takes them 20 minutes. We've talked, we've tried to talk with CSX, we tried to talk to JBG, that's property near the Twin Brook Metro, about having a different access besides Twin Brook Parkway. One was to have a pedestrian, bike, car, not a bridge, but just a crossover either on cutting through Halpine Road or cutting through where between the Sims and Tony's Auto Body Shop is. Number two, we need to maybe direct citizens to get off the roads.
Thank you. Mr. Shove.
Several things that we can do for traffic. The first is we can start using outside consultants for better flow. The current consultants that we're using work too much with our own developers, and so the results that we get, I'm not always comfortable with. Second, not overexpanding the pike. The people that I'm talking to say if we expand to 10, 12 lanes, all that'll happen is we'll fill up those lanes and have a bottleneck at either side. Our own circulator is a good idea. The mayor has been talking about this for a long time. I think it could stop at different shopping centers. The other thing we can do is work with Toward Safety, a U.S. program that has been highly successful. It's based on pay for success. It's a U.S. model, culturally based, and they have a road assessment program. But it's designed for the United States. It's effective, it's affordable, and it can be done without millions of dollars.
Thank you. So now we're going to have the cross. If you want, I hope you'll respond to your other candidates' comments. But we'll start with in the center of the table with Mr. Pershela.
The thing I didn't hear is the real cause of all this traffic, which is not density, it's sprawl. This county was built around sprawl, around suburban households with large tracts, and that's the problem. And it's not an easy one to solve. So along the pike, maybe you can do some things. Along some major routes, maybe you can do some things. But you're going to have to look at increased telecommuting, getting people to move closer to their jobs, looking at moving people and not cars. That's the kind of thing you need. When I walked the whole city, the one place where I felt most the crush of traffic was at the corner of Twin Brook Parkway and Veers Mill Road, and that was all traffic skirting the city because these people lived in sprawl-based communities.
Thank you. Mr. Reed.
So I'm part of a one-car family. We had 2 cars more than 10 years ago, and we gave one up. And I cannot tell you how much money we have saved since that has happened. And we have really challenged ourselves and enjoyed looking at new ways to travel all around the city of Rockville. And so what I would recommend is that we try something like another old hometown of mine, Seattle does. And they had what they call Seattle Bike Sundays. And they really encourage people to just get out of their cars and bike all around the city and even through major park connections as well. So that's what I would, I would advocate.
Ms. Mulligan.
Well, I'll share a story about the Twin Brook section because I live there, and we're hearing about going out on Twin Brook Parkway to Veers Mill and coming out of Halpine. We have a lot of new buildings there, and believe you me, we're going to get traffic when you have development. What I suggest is that we encourage businesses to have more staggered times. When we had 9/11, I was in that Park-On building, and the government was let out, everybody at the same time. It was gridlock. You can't expect traffic to flow any better if you have everybody going out at the same time. Also, we have the Metro Center at Twin Brook. Things are better because of the public transportation, and that's where we need to have focus.
Thank you. Ms. Blokovich-Carr.
I think Mr. Pershela is right when he says that this is a regional problem. We're seeing increased regional traffic through Rockville. Part of the solution is going to be advocating to the county, to the state, and to the federal government to make sure that they are properly investing in our ride-on buses, in BRT in the future, and in Metro. Part of this is also making sure that alternate modes of transportation, should people want to pursue them, like walking or biking, that they actually feel safe, and actually having good connections between our existing bike lanes and trails and adding new bike infrastructure in the future. I also want to correct something that Mr. Shuf said when he said that the pike would be expanded under the plan. That's just simply not true. It would maintain the same number of lanes as is currently built on the road, but add 2 additional dedicated lanes for bus rapid transit. It'd be the same number of lanes for cars. I also...
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to move now to our closing statements, and we'll go in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we'll start again with Ms. Blokovich-Carr.
During the course of knocking on thousands of doors in recent months, the most frequent concern I have heard has been traffic. People from across the city have expressed worries about speeding cars and cut-through traffic in neighborhoods. Most troublesome are the serious accidents involving pedestrians and bicyclists, like the fatalities that have occurred on the Pike and on other roads. No one should risk their life on a street in Rockville. I'm working on a new policy called Vision Zero, which aims to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. We can design our streets to be safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and people in vehicles. During the next term, I will lead the effort for Rockville to adopt Vision Zero. I will engage the community to create an implementation plan, and I will push for the county and state to improve safety on roads that they control, like Rockville Pike. I need your vote on November 3rd to make this vision a reality, and so that we are all safer on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mulligan.
Thank you to all who organized this debate and for giving me the opportunity to make my pitch to Rockville voters. There are 12 days left until Election Day. I hope you have followed my campaign, visited my website, and know enough about me to vote for me. Yesterday, I met a voter who told me he wanted to hear more about what candidates will do for Rockville and not hear about all the organizations we belong to. So I have changed my closing statement to include my priorities for Rockville. My campaign message is on my door hanger, my mailers, my Facebook, and my website. I'm ready to take the lead as Rockville addresses some very pressing issues. I pledge to be a leader on the council who will push for changes in the way we approach development, reduction in property tax, and improve civic engagement. I hope I have convinced you that I am the right person to lead the fight. I want to hear more from the Rockville residents because their vote matters to me. Please vote for Brigida Mulligan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, you're
Thank
next.
you. I spent the past few months talking to residents from all over the city, and it affirms my own feelings that Rockville is a great place to raise a family. Residents tell me they value the city's services and their safe neighborhoods, but I've also heard concerns about development and traffic congestion and school overcrowding and struggling retail centers. If elected, I will be your advocate on these and other issues. I will work with the mayor and other members of the council to represent the needs of all of Rockville as we increase the livability of our city and improve the well-being of our citizens. My professional experience in the federal government and on the Environment Commission has prepared me to lead our city and carefully make the decisions with both the past and present in mind. I will ask for your vote on November 3rd, and I would also ask that you please visit my website, clarkforrockville.com, for more information. And please consider supporting my teammates of Team Rockville, Sima, Virginia, Julie, and Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pershela.
Thank you. When I served as council member from 2009 to 13, I learned that I could lead from a council seat. I was effective on budget during the Great Recession. I was a council board member for Rockville Economic Development, Inc., and supported the Maryland Women's Business Center when it started. I am a business owner with an office in Town Center and a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I was president of the College Garden Civic Association from 2004 to 2008, and I know what the threats are to neighborhoods. Federal budget cuts make it clear that we cannot rely on the government anymore to fuel our economy. I will work hard to diversify our tax base. After my next 4 years in office, I want to be remembered as one who brought together residents, businesses, nonprofits, education, and government to fashion a new master plan that works for everyone. And I want to be remembered as the one who led a county-wide coalition to pay for classroom construction. Please visit my website at votepershela.org, and please vote for my Team Rockville slate mates. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Feinberg.
The Team Rockville campaign manager created a video superimposing my 2013 and 2015 televised statements as the same. Shockingly, the implication is that I am lazy and ill-prepared. I want to reaffirm how consistent my 2013 and 15 visions and priorities are for the city. This should be reassuring to residents and not seen as a proxy for insolence, right? In my book, that's something to celebrate, not denigrate. Look at my record. Imagine implying that I was so uncaring that I wore the same outfit. As a woman, I'm thankful that I can fit into the same clothes 2 years later. And Ed celebrates my frugality, thank you. Team Rockville campaign manager, thank you for giving me the chance to showcase both my figure and budget consciousness for city finances and the Feinbergs. And note the red jacket. Read more about me on www.berylfeinberg.com. I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mrs. Onley.
I'm known as the swing vote on the council. You know, listening to all issues before I make a decision and listening to all citizens. I will continue to be your independent swing vote. When there was an issue with the Children's Resource Center location, I stepped right in and tried to make a difference. I've rallied with MCPS in Annapolis. I supported the distribution of paper alleys. I supported the second S on Douglas Avenue so that it represented Frederick Douglass, and I listened to residents when there was a concern on Maryland Avenue between South Washington and Fleet Streets. I will continue to listen and represent this entire city. There's also been some talk about me being in the pockets of the developers. That couldn't be further from the truth. So please vote for me, Virginia Onley, and consider my Team Rockville teammates on November 3rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, you're next.
The prime question for you to decide in voting, I suggest, is who here will govern best. My decades of service demonstrate that I care deeply for the city, this community, its neighborhoods, and citizens. Here are the representative skills that I think are important to service on the council and what I've practiced on the dais already. Working hard to be prepared and contributing in session, listening to input and recalling it in deliberations, asking good questions, especially those the citizens might want to hear answers to, identifying merits and connecting them to decisions, balancing representational duty with personal judgment, handling difficult and intricate motions, reducing hard decisions to a yes or no vote, making sure participants not only what was decided, but why, knowing how to collaborate with colleagues or staff, and sustaining a productive and respectful environment. I submit to you that I will be proud to serve on the council, and you can expect that same performance from me. My 20 years of appointed service on deliberative and decision-making bodies was effectively deep training for this next step. Please favor me with your vote to make that step. For more information about my candidacy and record, you can see my website at www.hillforrockville.org.
So next, it's Mr. Gottfried.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and lastly, I want to thank my wife, Stacy Gottfried, the First Lady of Twinbrook, for her campaign support. Again, I am Richard Gottfried, your neighborhood candidate. I understand how to listen to the residents and how to represent your interest. I need to make two comments on Team Rockville's Julie Pawlakowicz-Carr and Ms. Onley. Julie Carr said that Vision Zero was her plan. However, she actually ripped off the idea from the New York City plan. Same name, same plan. In college, they call that plagiarism and kick you out of school. Did she think that the residents are not smart enough to look up Vision Zero? We deserve honesty from our elected officials. Ms. Onley stated that she didn't take money from developers. But if you look at her campaign finance reports, actually 50% of her contributions did come from developers. My name is Richard Gottfried, and I ask for your vote on November 3rd. Please visit my website, www.votegottfried.com.
Thank you. Finally, we'll have Mr. Schoaf.
Do we really want to reinvent ourselves into an overly dense, towering high development when we are a nationally recognized, neighborhood-focused, award-winning city? We must elect people who have a history of advocating for residents, relevant real-world executive-level experience beyond local committees, and independent minds without an agenda. I work for you, and I'll get the right things done. Interestingly, my Vision Zero comment is similar. It's a European model designed for a national level that takes millions to invest in and years to start. It's not designed for the U.S. We have Towards Zero, a completely different program that's designed for cities like ours. Vote for me on November 3rd, and Rockville will be our place that we call home, and it will be stronger than it ever has. I look forward to hearing more from you and to having your support.
Thank you. Thank all of you for participating tonight. So that's it for our debate tonight of the Rockville Council candidates. Let's give all of them a round of applause now. Thank you. We're now going to take a 10-minute break to prepare for the mayoral candidates debate. As we head to break, here is some election news for you from Rock 11, your 2015 Rockville election headquarters. Thank you all for being here.
Hello and welcome to the 2015 Rockville election special for Rock 11 Now. I'm your host, Katie Giardi, coming to you from Rock 11 election headquarters here in Rockville City Hall at the Wall of Mayors. And it makes sense that we're here because coming up, we're going to give you all the information you need to know to make sure you're prepared to cast your vote come Election Day. This year's election is on Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. For more information, you can call the City Clerk's office at 240-314-8280. And Rockville's election will be part of Maryland history. Voters will now be casting their ballots a little differently with pen and paper. Deputy Director of the Montgomery County Board of Elections, Allison McLaughlin, explains.
Rockville will be the only jurisdiction in the entire state of Maryland that's using this new equipment in the municipal election this year in 2015. The City of Rockville runs its own elections and city elections. The Montgomery County Board of Elections manages elections for county, state, and federal offices. We work very closely with the City of Rockville. We certainly encourage Rockville voters to go out and vote on Election Day.
Rock 11 teamed up with Allison and the Board of Elections so we can show you just how you're going to cast your ballot on Election Day. Take a look step by step.
Now this is the process that you'll use to vote at your polling place on Election Day. When you arrive at the polling place, you'll check in to vote just as you would have in the past. But on Election Day, the ballot that you see in front of you is what you'll receive. You'll take that ballot and you'll take it to a voting booth and mark your selections on the ballot. If you make a mistake on your ballot, don't worry, we can always issue you a new one. Fill in the oval completely. Don't use a check mark, don't use an X. Make sure that you fill in the oval completely so that the scanner will be able to tell which choice you've made. And when you're finished and you've reviewed your selections and are ready to cast your ballot, you can walk it right over to the scanner in the polling place. At the scanner, you will insert your ballot, and after the ballot is digitally scanned so results can be tabulated on election night, your ballot drops into the ballot box and you're done.
That's definitely news that works for you this election season, but some of you may want to vote early. All you have to do is come to City Hall on Saturday, October 24th or Sunday, October 25th to vote. Early voting will take place on both days from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And remember, if you haven't registered, you can register and vote that same day. And the way you will cast your ballot on those early voting days will be a bit different as well. This time, you're casting your vote electronically. Our Rockville election partner, Allison McLaughlin, from the Montgomery County Board of Elections, once again shows us how.
So first we're going to go through the process. If you go to the third floor of the City Hall and you vote in the clerk's office, when you arrive you're going to check in, just as you would have checked in as a Rockville voter in the past. You're going to take the activator card over to the Express Vote machine. You see the word Express Vote there at the top? You're going to put the blank card into the slot that you see in the lower right-hand corner of the Express Vote. And then you're going to see your choices come up. You can mark a write-in ballot if you want. If you want to choose something, deselect it, select something else. You'll see that you only have to touch it once now. You don't have to touch it twice anymore to deselect a choice on the ballot. This outreach ballot was designed by the state of Maryland. It'll be interesting to see what voters choose in our outreach events. Is their favorite bird? Is their favorite Maryland food? Favorite sport? If you choose languages at the top, you can change between English and Spanish. Sometimes a voter might start in English, decide when they get to a ballot question that's a little hard to read in the English that they'll switch between English and Spanish. We also have an audio feature. If you look at the bottom of the Express Vote, you'll see a keypad that voters can use, and there's a set of headphones on the left that voters can also use to listen to the ballot choices. You can just select Next. And now print card if you're ready to print your ballot. Now you have a ballot in your hands. You can take that ballot over to the scanner, and when you insert that ballot into the scanner, collecting a digital scan of that ballot that will let us tabulate the results on election night, and your ballot drops into the ballot box and you're done. We'll give you your I voted sticker and you'll be on your way.
If you can't make it to the polls on early voting days or Election Day, November 3rd, then you may want to vote absentee.
That's right, Katie. I'm Catherine Dantzler with news about how to vote absentee in this year's election. The first thing you need to do is apply for an absentee ballot. And to do that, just head to our website at rockvillemd.gov/election15. You have until October 26 to submit your application. Once your application is received by the city clerk's office, you will receive your absentee ballot in the mail. After October 26, you can still apply. All you have to do is fill out an application in person, and you'll receive your absentee ballot at the time when you go to the city clerk's office on the 3rd floor of City Hall. Once you receive your absentee ballot, you must return it to the city clerk's office in person, by mail, or fax by election night, November 3rd at 8 p.m. That's the news that works for Rockville. I'll have more election news for you later in the show. For now, let's head back to Katie at election headquarters in City Hall. Katie?
And the city is working for Rockville seniors and the disabled who may need a ride to the polls. Call the Senior Services Center at 240-314-8810 so you can reserve a ride. The deadline to reserve a ride is Friday, October 30th, 2015. Working for you, Rockville, with news you can use when it comes to this year's election. Rockville is divided into 10 districts for voting, and if you are a part of Rockville's 7th voting district, you have a new polling place. Polling has moved from its former spot at Ritchie Park Elementary School to the Latvian Lutheran Church. The new address is 400 Hurley Avenue. And now to prove that your vote does matter, for the first time in Rockville history, Rockville's newly elected mayor and council will serve a 4-year term. You voted for the change on the 2013 city ballot, and it was approved by the mayor and council earlier this year. This means that the next election will not be for 4 more years, so you'll need to be ready to vote again in 2019. And finally, there are 2 mayoral candidates and 9 candidates for council vying for your votes. It's finally time to meet the candidates.
Thanks, Katie. I'm Catherine Dantzler. Let's take a look at the mayor's race. Incumbent Bridget Donald Newton and Sima Odstaby. There are 9 candidates trying to get a seat at the Rockville City Council. Those candidates are Beryl L. Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, David Hill, Brigitte Mulligan, Virginia Onley, Julie Polakovich Carr, Mark Pershela, Clark Reed, and Patrick Schoaf. Those are all your candidates for the 2015 Rockville election. Katie, back to you.
You can also see all of the candidate statements on our YouTube channel as well. That's the election news from your Rockville election headquarters. For more information on the Rockville election, head to our website, rockvillemd.gov/election15, or tweet us using the hashtag RockElection15. And check out all of our Rock 11 produced videos on YouTube at youtube.com/City of Rockville.
Did you know?
Did you know?
Did you know that there's an election coming up on November 3rd?
November 3rd?
November 3rd? It's up to us to choose Rockville's next mayor and council.
If you don't vote now, then you have to wait
Four
more years.
Now is our chance to make a difference.
So that's why I'm.
So that's why I'm.
So that's why I'm.
So that's why I'm voting Rockville.
For the 2015 Rockville elections, please welcome our moderator, Linda Barnes.
Good evening. Thank you for coming and staying. We've finished the council members' debate, and now we're moving on to the mayoral candidates debate. So we're here in F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater, and we also want to welcome back our viewers on Rock 11 who are here after viewing to see this 2015 election debate hosted by the League of Women Voters. I am Lynna Barnes, president of the League, and I will be the moderator for this debate. So we're going to start with hearing from our mayoral candidates. I want you to welcome incumbent Mayor Bridget Donald Newton and mayoral candidate Sima Osdeby. So yes, please welcome them with applause. And this is your only opportunity to applaud them until the end of the debate tonight. We will have another opportunity then, but please, in the meantime, don't applaud or make comments during the debates. We're going to begin with opening statements from both the mayoral candidates. The order again was determined by a random drawing prior to the start of the debate. So, and also, if you want to ask any questions from the audience, you can pass your questions to the side. We also have questions from the previous debate from the audience, and we'll be using those again, some of them that we did not use the first time. So, let's start with Ms. Osdeby.
Good evening. I've enjoyed serving my Newmark Commons neighborhood and the Rockville community for 35 years. I've helped reform election laws, protect neighborhoods, and preserve our heritage through leadership in peerless Rockville. I want to stay here. Rockville is at a critical point. We need new leadership to end stalemate and division and act to serve the interests of the entire community. In the face of changes all around us, we must take charge to navigate into the future and preserve our outstanding services and excellent quality of life. We must respect the time and input of hundreds of Rockvillians, break the deadlock, and pass a Rockville Pike Plan that is transit-oriented, reduces traffic congestion, maintains our commercial tax base, and works for Rockville. I have a proven track record to forge the consensus needed to agree on what we want to reinvigorate the Pike, the town center, and our fragile neighborhood centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Newton.
Trip over my own chair. Thank you, and welcome to the debate, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight. I'm Bridget Newton, and I'm running for re-election because I think that I have the vision and the leadership abilities to take the city forward. I have enjoyed my time as mayor of the city. I've enjoyed the opportunities that the city has, working with all of our stakeholders, the county, MCPS, our District 17 delegation, and I think we need to keep those partnerships going forward. We've heard a little bit tonight about a trolley, and I hope that that conversation will continue. I've tried for 5 years to get a discussion going about the circulator in the city of Rockville, because I think it's very, very important that we not just be concerned about the first mile, but we be concerned about the last mile, how people are going to get from the metro back home or from their home to metro. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I'll say again, we will be asking questions that were prepared by the League, by League members, and also questions from the audience. So if any of you have those, please pass them to the side. But in the meantime, we're going to start with our questions, and as always, we'll have closing statements at the end. So thank you, everyone, and let's start the debate. So the first question, I don't know, perhaps this is a softball. Should Rockville increase the amount of green space or parks in the city, or just work to improve the current space, or do both of these things? And we'll start with them. I'm sorry, I didn't say who we'll start with. We'll start with Ms. Newton, and then we'll go back and forth.
Right. Well, I actually think we need to do both things. We need to continue to keep up with our infrastructure. It's something I've been talking about for a while. But we also need to ensure that any new residents that come to the city and those that are in communities that don't have a walk within a 10-minute walk are afforded the same opportunity. It's one of the mayor and council's priorities from many, many years ago. It's part of our master plan that we afford that 10-minute walk opportunity. So yes, we need to continue continue to do that, and we need to make the existing parks we have even better.
All right, Ms. Osby. I believe that we need to make our existing parks better, and we also probably need to add some more as required. But I've learned, as going around the city in a more concentrated way, that one of the other things that we need in the city are more neighborhood indoor gathering places, more places for civic activities that are accessible, easily accessible to a variety of people. And I think that that is just as important. However, we need to keep in mind that Rockville's crown jewel in many ways is a wide, expanse of parks, and they would be improved by adding some more indoor gathering spaces for a variety of community uses.
Thank you. So this one we'll start with Ms. Osby first. So as development with taller buildings and mixed uses comes to the pike outside the city limits, that's White Flint, with the county council making those decisions, what should Rockville's planning response be to development in that part of the pike be? Should you be the same as the county? Should you do different? Speak to the height and the density of what your vision for Rockville Pike should be. So you first, Ms. Osby.
First of all, the first thing we have to do is pass a Rockville Pike plan. Hundreds of Rockville citizens have weighed in on that in terms of what a community vision is. That we need to harmonize our plan with the counties, and we need to make sure that where there are metro stations, there's greater density and mixed use, so that people don't have to use cars quite so much and provide congestion. And we also need the BRT, and we need more neighborhood transportation. But the place where we need the density is around metro stations, and we must make sure our plan is works in conjunction with the counties.
Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. I think one of the misconceptions and something that's been misstated many, many times during these debates is that the council has the authority over the master plan and the Pike plan, and we don't. It's up to the Planning Commission. So we need to make sure that we are all working in concert together so that the plan that the Planning Commission passes is the best plan for the city of Rockville. Right now, we are doing some very different things than the rest of the county, south and north of us, in the width of our pike. It was stated earlier that the pike isn't getting any wider, but actually it will if we're adding 2 more BRT lanes. And we need to make sure that those 2 lanes for the BRT are in the same location as they are south and north. It doesn't work if Rockville puts ours on the side and the county has them in the middle. The other thing we need to do is ensure that we get the green space. And I should have said earlier, we are sitting tonight in one of Rockville's crown gems, the Glenview Mansion and the park surrounding the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater and the mansion. And it was very important for our forefathers to think about preserving that.
Thank you. So let's continue on transportation. I'd like you to talk about the BRT, which is on the pike, but there's also in the larger plan, they talk about one on Veers Mill Road. So talk about all of the idea of that mass transit through using bus rapid transit. So Ms. Newton, why don't you start?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things I've been very fortunate is to serve on the Transportation Planning Board of the Council of Governments. I served for 4 years as a member, and recently I was elected as second vice chair. That gives Rockville a seat at the table as we go forward with all of these conversations. This is a regional issue. This is a regional problem, and we need to work together with everyone to solve it. Whether the BRT is ever funded is a good question. I think it's certainly not going to happen in the next 5 years. We can't wait 5 years to figure out what we're going to do. A circulator or a trolley up and down Rockville Pike, up and down Veers Mill Road would be something that we could do at far less cost and in a far shorter time period to ensure that our citizens can get around and get to the places that they want to go. The BRT in theory sounds great, but we don't need people coming through Rockville. We need people stopping in Rockville and taking care of their business and dining in our restaurants.
Thank you. Ms. Osby.
Before I came to this region, I worked on something called the Boston Transportation Planning Review, which was an 18-month restudy of all the transportation issues in metropolitan Washington, metropolitan Boston. It took 18 months to come up with solutions for an entire region. We need to really, first of all, pass our Rockville Pike plan. We need to take a look at short, medium, and long-range solutions to some of the transportation problems we have. We have problems with people needing to go through the city, particularly right now because of development happening at either end of the city. We have to get them through. That's one of the things that the BRT in the long run will do. And then we have to get stuff across the city. And we need to, that's why the other BRT is a good example for the longer term. But we do indeed need to come up with short and medium term solutions as well.
Thank you. So it'll go first to you, Ms. Osdeby. But this next question, so I want to continue on this theme. We were talking about public transit, but let's talk about the highways some. We had the question earlier with the candidates for the council about Twin Brook Parkway, the difficulties there, the traffic lights. This is specifically about highways. What would you do to make the highways better within the city of Rockville? And perhaps address the issue of the fact that the state gives highway funds to all municipalities, and I know those have been cut. What you think about the amount and what can be done about that? So the state highway funds, and also what to do about highways in general in Rockville.
Okay. We're talking about arterial streets that go
all
through
streets. I mean, whatever.
As well as the one highway that goes through Rockville is I-270. In terms
right.
of,
I wasn't talking about I-270. I'm talking about
the ones with the major roads through the city. We really have to be working with the other jurisdictions, with the state and the county, which have jurisdiction over many of these roads. I think that Rockville's role with these other forms of government is to really be a forceful advocate for our needs, for the needs of the people who live here and the people who work here and the businesses who are here. And we need to be getting our fair share. I'm not so sure that the city has always done the best job in doing that, but where we have a lot of problems or where we have multi-jurisdictional problems. And I think when I'm mayor, the city is going to really focus on representing the needs of the city before the other jurisdictions and making sure that we're well coordinated with them and our needs are met.
Thank you. Ms. Newton?
Yes, when I was first elected in 2009, then Mayor Marcuccio put me on the legislative committee, MML, Maryland Municipal League's legislative committee, and we worked very, very hard to get the restoration of HUR, that's Highway User Revenue funding, back for municipalities in the state of Maryland. At first, we were not as successful, but this past year, we brought almost $2 million back to the city of Rockville. You have to have those relationships, you have to have the money at the state level and the persuasive abilities to get that done. That's not easy. There is another road, state road, that goes right through Rockville, and it's called Rockville Pike. And if we work with the state and we do what the state is asking in terms of making the road conducive to what's happening south and north, the state is far more willing to help pay for a lot of the infrastructure underground, like the utilities. Huge impact for the city of Rockville if we didn't have to pay for that. I think we also need to talk about other ways, and I'll say it again, we don't want people just going through Rockville. We've got to put the people who are going through on 270, the MARC train, or the Metro.
Thank you. So I asked this of the council candidates, and I'm going to ask you, both of you, and so Ms. Newton, you'll be starting. What specific things should Rockville do to increase affordable and workforce housing in the city? And do you think this should become a high priority for the city? And I'm not sure I had any of the candidates before talk to the question of money. I know the county puts money into affordable housing. Do you think that would be appropriate use of the revenues that Rockville City takes in? to use on increasing the amount of affordable housing. So we'll start with you, Ms. Newton.
Great, thank you very much. So in effort to increase affordable housing in the city, I think we need to talk to our developers, and we need to use the affordable housing as community benefits in some regards, and that is a balancing act. Go back to the Pike. When you are taking land away from the Pike for access, away from property owners for access roads, you're limiting their ability to give you all the community benefit that you want. So I think there is a give and play there. I think the city could ask for more in the percentage of affordable housing with regards to height. It could be a trade-off. The city already does. I don't know if everybody knows this, but the city already does have an affordable housing authority called Rockville Housing Enterprises, and they do buy homes. The city supports them to a good degree. I think it's almost $1 million a year. We also have our community ministries and our other caregiver agencies who own housing in the city that is given in affordable ways. So there are plans that, there are ways that we have to all work together, but it has to be in concert. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Usdeby.
Quite a number of years ago, I served on the Rockville Housing Policy Task Force, which was partially trying to address exactly this issue. And Rockville has a mix of housing for people at different income levels. But one of the problems, as has been said, is this is a really very expensive region in which to live. So we have to be really very focused and creative about how to attract workforce housing that's affordable. There was a great project that was proposed for workforce housing called Bell's Grant 2, and when Bridget Newton was representing her neighborhood association, I believe she opposed that. And we have to really make sure that when we have the opportunities to build affordable housing, working with nonprofits in this community, that we take those opportunities.
Thank you. So I know one question that has come up is about schools. You've heard about this. I know that you know about the adequate public facilities ordinance that Rockville has, and that you recently changed that to bring it more in line with the counties. But I want you to, school overcrowding and aging schools are concerns of many parents in the city. How can the city help to address these problems, and talk about whether you think the actions of the council recently took on the APFS policy was correct, or it should have been different? And but I want some specific ways in which you would do something about the schools. And if you don't, obviously this is a county issue, we've heard that, but please talk about that. So this starts with you, Ms. Usdeby.
I believe that the action that the council took on the adequate public facilities standards was absolutely correct. I've lived in my neighborhood for 35 years. I will tell you that this year, when I went down to the school bus stop, I've never seen as many kids there. In the past 10 years, during which time the adequate public facility standards were enforced, not one new house was built in my neighborhood, yet we've had generational change. This is a very, very desirable place to live in. Thank goodness people want to live here. Now, I think that the role that I and my teammates on Team Rockville wish to take is to really lead a countywide effort to really make sure that our kids get the best education possible, and that neighborhood and cluster isn't fighting with each other, that we want to get together and work with the state and county to agree on priorities and push them.
Thank you. Ms. Newton.
Yes, I was just reaching to pick up an article that I grabbed out of today's Sentinel. Our school overcrowding is really bad, and it's not just coming from existing homes and new developments. It's coming, it's happening in private schools as well. It's not children coming from private here, which is another thing that keeps being said. I objected to the action that the council took because there was no notice. All of a sudden, one day, it was on the agenda, and they voted it down. There were other ways that we could have talked about and worked together to solve some of the concerns that people have. I don't know if everybody remembers, but in the 1980s, MCPS and the county closed 5 elementary schools in the city limits of Rockville. If those schools were open now, our problem wouldn't be nearly as significant. What they did by going to the county, they are now adding the clustering in and changed the outlook from 2 to 5 years. That means that Twin Brook Elementary, which is in sore need of a renovation, torn down, started over, will now be used as the school that has the space for the development to go into other areas. So it's not going to help Twin Brook at all.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about businesses in Rockville. I know one of the questions was that Pike and Rose looks exciting, but Rockville Town Center has gaps like a 6-year-old's teeth. Why are businesses leaving the town center? Is that your perception? What do you think about that? I know I've seen this in other debates. There's been real questions about the town center and that businesses are not attracted to there. They want to go to other places. So what about the town center? Ms. Newton, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a great question because once again we get to put away something that's not true. Just like the previous statement that I worked against Bell's Grant is not true. I was actually the co-chair of the committee that the city put together to try to come up with a solution to Bell's Grant. So I'm kind of tired of the lies. But we also need to understand that Town Center isn't dying. There is a cyclical time when a project comes online. After 5 years, leases are up and things change over. There are 8 businesses coming in the next couple months. We just got word recently that World of Beer, Panera Bread, Supercuts are coming to the DeBall project, right with the Upton apartments. Cambria Suites just opened their hotel. It's booked every weekend. We are doing pretty well in Rockville. Can we do better? Sure. But, I think somebody who said, I'm dead before I'm in the ground, Rockville isn't dying. Rockville is thriving, and I'd like to see us do more. Thank you.
Ms. Ozdeby.
One of the problems of taking positions is it goes on the public record. Town Center. One of the problems that I've heard about Town Center is that there simply isn't enough density to support many of the businesses that are there. I'm enjoying all the terrific restaurants. I think a lot of us would like to have some more choices about shopping there, but we need to make sure that Rockville, that the northern part of the town center is developed, and that also that the Rockville Pike plan is passed so people have a set of rules by which to play. People are not going to come here if they know that the rules are going to change. And in Rockville, we have a reputation of changing the rules in mid-course.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of incentives and either zoning incentives or incentives in terms of cash or tax abatements. I know Choice Hotels moved to Rockville with these incentives. They just had their opening, so you see the culmination of that project. What's your opinion of using these incentives or in the form of tax abatements or zoning concessions for businesses to get them to move to Rockville? Ms. Ozdeby, we'll start with you.
I think Mr. Pichela noted that we can no longer rely on the federal government as basically keeping our economy strong. We have to be very competitive with other jurisdictions. One of the ways you do that is through incentives. I think we got a terrific deal on the incentives for the Choice Hotels coming here. Rockville was asked to put in about $176,000 as part of a much larger incentive plan from the state and the county. In return, what we have gotten is about $180,000 a year in new property tax revenue. That's every year. And as well as 400 terrific jobs and people coming in helping to keep our town center vital by using the restaurants and services.
Thank you. Ms. Newton.
I definitely agree about incentives, but I think Rockville, as one of the top cities in the country for livability, can stand on its own when we're talking about bringing good companies in. I did not vote against. I abstained from the vote because I wasn't finished bartering with Choice. I'm thrilled that Choice is here. I was at their opening a couple years ago, but Choice is an $8 million publicly traded company. Why would the city of Rockville, with a $126 million budget and 63,000 citizens, use our taxpayer dollars to incentivize a $1 billion publicly traded company? It didn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm working very hard to see if we can get Marriott. I think businesses are the way to go, but I think there are other things we can do to incentivize these great companies. We have to think about the other things, and there is something that's not being said. They may be providing taxes to the city through the county, but they're going right back out in the terms of our rebates to Choice Hotels.
Thank you. Let's have this is going to be just a 30-second answer. So just because I think it's a pretty easy one to answer. And Ms. Newton will be you first. The county recently banned pesticides in the county, on county land and private property. Do you think the city should adopt a similar law? 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think that's a question for our community. I think we need to have a public hearing and find out what people think. I personally don't use pesticides on my lawn, but I know there are places that do. I think it's like the smoking ordinance that we recently passed. You need to hear from your community. Your mayor and council are your representatives, but we want to hear from you to know where you stand on things as we do our due diligence in our deliberations.
Thank you. Ms. Osdeby.
I think that the county study that. It would be a good idea for Rockville to use one of its many boards or commissions and its excellent staff to make a thorough review of the cost and benefits of the city following suit. Thank you.
Thank you both. So this is another development question that just came in about Metro, and we'll start with Ms. Osdeby. So if there's going to be increased development near Metro, what challenges does the city have in working with Metro, given its funding, maintenance, and capacity issues? So I know that's a big topic in the Washington Post always. Let's hear what you have to say about Metro and what the county can do about it, and this is a minute answer.
I think we really have to work very closely in concert with the county government and everybody else on who's served by Metro to really make sure that Metro becomes the workable signature transit system that it should be. And I don't think Rockville is going to be able to do this alone. We really have to do this working very, very closely to make sure that the Metro is adequately funded, I think including by the federal government, because this is the nation's capital and it serves it, and to be very, very forceful in working and insisting that everybody pays their fair share.
Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Of course, I support the Metro and definitely think they need to be better funded. I'm very interested to see who the next general manager will be. I can understand that it's not a very popular job, but you need somebody that's going to come in and really make some changes. This week we got a procurement report. Well, actually, we got the procurement report a month ago, but this week we had a discussion about it. And like that report, when you have an expert telling you that you need to make changes in your procedures and your policies, I, for one, will be listening to that person. I think that's what Metro needs to do. I think we've got to find a way to make it far more reliable. When I worked downtown, I took the Metro almost every day. It was very convenient and very helpful. But right now, I hear from a lot of people that they don't take it because it's so unreliable. So yeah, we have to work together, but this is at a state, federal level. The city of Rockville doesn't have a lot to do with the Metro.
Thank you. So this goes to Ms. Newton first. This is about your style of leadership. And what do you think your style of leadership is? How would you work with the council that's going to be elected to get things accomplished? And describe a situation in which you think that your leadership style really was positive. So all in a minute.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, I guess my leadership style would be collaborative. would be the best word I can think of. I don't mind making the hard decisions, but I like to hear from everyone and have everyone's opinion on the table. I think it was a very interesting challenge for me the past 2 years, and I tried to lead in that manner. At our retreat, I was told by one of the council members that I was elected with no allies, and I would be on the bottom of a lot of 4-to-1 votes. So I really set my mind to making partnerships where I could on issues that were of importance to me, and I did pretty well considering. But I think you have to elect people who want to work together and not people who have set a stake in the stand that they will only work with certain people. I promise you that if I'm elected mayor, I will again continue to work with anyone who's on the council and put my best effort forward to be that collaborative leader that Rockville deserves.
Thank you. Ms. Osdeby.
I have about a half a century's experience in leadership and have a lot of achievements to show for it. Currently, 3 of the people who are running with me have served with this mayor, and of the 10 people who've served with her, is it 10 or 9? 3 are running with me, and 2 are actively supporting me. As a leader, I believe in bringing out the best that everybody has to offer. I believe that everybody has strengths, and people have a variety of points of view, and very good decisions. Research shows that the best decisions come when you have different points of view, diversity, and really are very inclusive. And that's the type of leader I have, and those are the achievements that I have all over the world.
Why don't we have 30, we're ending up our time, but have 30 seconds of rebuttal on this issue. So Ms. Newton will go with you. You can rebut the statement.
On this issue?
On this issue. I'm just trying to come with a little bit of time to go.
Yeah, I'll just point out that I'm being supported by 5 former mayors, which I think is indicative of the type of leadership that I have provided to the city and the type of person that I am. I'm sorry that there are some council members who still don't think I led them in a good way, but you know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I tried very, very hard to have a gracious council, a good council, a collaborative council. It's important to note also that in the city of Rockville, the mayor cannot make or second a motion. So even though I might have an idea or want something, I need someone else to bring it forward.
Thank you. Ms. Osdeby.
2 things. One of the things I learned when I was a lobbyist was, a public interest lobbyist, by the way, that the people who were opposed to what I was for wound up being my ally on some other issue. So you have a responsibility to bring people along with you. More important, the mayor has just talked about abstaining. Abstaining is a no vote, and that's not good leadership.
Thank you. So this is going to be really fast, just almost, well, 30 seconds, and this will be the last question. So do you anticipate that you would raise property taxes? So Ms. Osdeby, go to you first.
You know, for the past 8 years, Rockville's property tax rate has stayed steady. And one of the ways that I think we're going to be able to maintain the outstanding services that Rockville is known for and yet not raise the property tax is to really make sure that we increase our commercial property tax base. That is about 40% of the taxes, the property taxes that come into the city. It actually used to be 50%. So we need to keep our commercial property tax base steady.
Thank you. Ms. Newton.
Well, I'll go into this budget session, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, just like I went into the past 6, that the property tax rate would stay the same. I have advocated for that, and I have been fortunate that that's one of the goals that we've met. There are a lot of other ways that we can get more money in the city, and one of them is to find the 5 to 8% the waste that the procurement study showed on Monday night. Another is a top-down review of city staff and what they're doing. One of the questions during the council portion was on neighborhood services. I'd like to take a hard look at that department.
Thank you. So that's it for our questions. We're going to move to our closing statements now. So we'll have each candidate give her closing statement, and we'll start with you, Ms. Newton, because you ended before. So you'll go first this time.
And I'd like to stand up again, but I'm not going to trip over my chair, so I'm going to stay seated. Thank you all very much for participating in this process. I think we must be respectful of our past, but we must be forward-thinking. And as we work together on the master plan, the Pike plan, and all of our neighborhood plans, you don't build a building from the penthouse. You start with a good foundation. That's what we must do in the city of Rockville. We need good development, not just any development, and we've got to work with our property owners to ensure that what comes is an enhancement to the city of Rockville. We need to make sure that we get the community benefits that these projects can give to us, and by doing that, by being good partners, it will enrich everyone. I'm proud of my vote to fund the purchasing study. I'm proud of all of my votes on the City Council. I think that we need to stop working against each other and start pulling together. We have a great city, and I'm very, very proud of the City of Rockville. I'd like to be a part of making it even better as we go forward.
Thank you. Ms. Ozdeby.
The city that I love needs new leadership. That's why I'm asking for your vote to be mayor for the next 4 years. If Bridget Newton had had her way, there would be no new police station in Rockville's historic post office building. There would be no newly modernized and expanded senior center. Rockville's water and sewer infrastructure would not be getting fixed, and Rockville's snowplows would not be properly maintained. And above all, Rockville would not have the new Choice Hotel's headquarters, nor the new hotel and apartments in town center. She opposed the tiny investment the city made to attract them here. The Choice Hotel's headquarters alone brings in more than 400 jobs and adds roughly $180,000 a year to our property tax revenues. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road and hiding from the truth. We must take charge of our city's future, one that works for all of us. Rockville is at a critical point. We need to make decisions so that the changes all around us work for Rockville. We must seize opportunities that help preserve our neighborhoods and outstanding services we rely on.
Thank you. So thank you both for being here tonight, for participating in this debate. It really is a wonderful opportunity for citizens in Rockville and the rest of the county to see what Rockville's politics are all about. That's it tonight for our 2015 Rockville election candidate debates. I want to thank tonight all the candidates that were here tonight. Their willingness to serve is what makes our democracy work. I thank again our League of Women Voters volunteers who are here tonight, the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater staff, as well as Rock 11 staff for making tonight's debate a success. I also want to thank all of you here in the audience and the viewers at home. Please remember that voting is your right, not a gift. So use it on Election Day. Election Day is November the 3rd. Please come out and vote. And so that's it from the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater. I'm Lynna Barnes, president of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County. Good night. And let's all give a round of applause.